Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a big one, a question that's resonated for millennia. Is the Bible just a collection of human words, or is there something more? We're going to explore this idea that it contains God's very thoughts.
That's right. And it's definitely a claim that sparks a lot of questions, a lot of debate. The idea that this one book, the Bible, stands alone as the definitive word from God. Well, that's a pretty significant assertion.
It is a very significant one. And as our sources point out, just accepting this purely on faith maybe isn't the whole picture for everyone. Paul actually encouraged folks to, understand what they've learned and be assured of it.
Right, to dig deeper.
Exactly. So for you, our listener, this deep dive is about looking into the actual evidence for this claim.
Yeah, precisely. And this isn't just some abstract theological exercise. Understanding whether there's a basis for divine inspiration.
Yeah.
It can really change how you read it, how you interpret scripture.
Okay, so where do we start? Where do we look for this kind of evidence? Our sources point to a few key areas. Things like prophecy, archaeology, the consistency within the Bible itself, which is kind of amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
And also this interesting thing about the writers maybe downplaying their own importance.
Those are the main lines of evidence we'll explore, yeah. Think of them as different angles to examine the central question of inspiration.
Okay, let's dive into prophecy first then. The idea that someone could actually predict events hundreds, maybe thousands of years in advance, that's pretty astounding, isn't it?
It really is, and what's particularly fascinating for you, the listener, to consider is just the sheer volume of these predictive statements in the Old Testament about the Messiah, about Jesus.
Right, not just vague hints.
No, we're talking about hundreds of specific prophecies, details about his birthplace, his life, how he would die, his resurrection, all written centuries, some over 1,000 years before he was even born.
And the probabilities. I saw a calculation in our source material about the odds. Just 8 of these prophecies coming true in one person.
Ah, yeah, that statistic. It's mind-boggling.
Sound like 1 in 100 quadrillion. Is that right?
Yeah, 1 followed by 17 zeros.
Wow. And the comparison they used, winning a $1 billion lottery 330 million times just to get 8 prophecies right.
Exactly. And it's crucial to remember that's only 8 prophecies. There are hundreds more potentially relevant ones.
So what is that kind of improbability? What does it suggest? It can't just be coincidence, can it?
Well, it certainly challenges that idea, doesn't it? For you, this incredible unlikelihood, it's not just a mathematical curiosity. It strongly suggests some kind of pre-knowledge, knowledge that human authors writing centuries apart just wouldn't naturally possess. It points towards maybe a guiding intelligence.
But it wasn't only prophecies about Jesus, was it? The sources also mention more secular predictions, like in the book of Daniel.
That's another really interesting area, yeah. Daniel describes the rise and fall of successive world empires, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, with such startling accuracy.
Accuracy to the point that...
To the point that some critics historically argued it had to have been written after the events happened. They couldn't believe it was predictive.
So that raises a big question about dating the text itself, though.
It does. And for you listening, it highlights how we interpret ancient texts. If Daniel was written beforehand, as traditionally believed and supported by other evidence, then it provides really compelling support for a prophetic element in the Bible that goes beyond just religious figures.
Okay, so prophecy looks forward. Let's switch gears and look back archaeology. How does digging up old ruins connect to Bible inspiration?
Well, if you think about it, the Bible grounds itself in, real history. It talks about specific people, actual cities, historical events.
Unlike myths or legends that might be set in vague, faraway lands or times.
Exactly. And because it's grounded like that, its claims are, in theory, testable. They're potentially verifiable or even falsifiable through archaeology.
Meaning if the places and people didn't exist as described, archaeology should eventually show that, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Especially in the Middle East, which is probably one of the most heavily excavated regions on Earth. If the Bible was just made-up stories, surely archaeology would constantly be contradicting it.
So what has archaeology found?
Well, what's really remarkable for you to note is that the overwhelming trend has been validation, consistent findings. Discoveries keep confirming the historical backdrop, the geographical details, the cultural practices mentioned in the Bible. It lends credibility to the accounts.
So rather than disproving it, archaeology tends to support it.
Broadly speaking, yes. It doesn't prove divine inspiration directly, of course, but it shows the historical framework is reliable, which is a crucial foundation.
And our sources mention something else, too. Seemingly advanced scientific knowledge. descriptions of nature that align with modern science.
Yeah, that's another layer for you to consider. There are passages describing, say, the Earth being round or hung on nothing, or about ocean currents, things that weren't really scientifically understood or accepted until much, much later.
How could they have known that back then?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? These instances where ancient texts seem to contain knowledge ahead of their time, they add another dimension to this discussion about a possible source beyond human observation at that point.
Okay, fascinating. So we've looked at external evidence, prophecy, archaeology. Now let's turn inwards. Let's look at the Bible itself. Our sources talk about this incredible consistency and continuity. What does that mean for you?
Well, what's truly kind of staggering for you to think about is how the Bible was put together. We see it as one book, right?
Right, usually bound together.
But it's actually a library, a collection of 66 separate books written over this huge span of time.
And not by one person. That's the key thing.
Not at all. We're talking about roughly 40 different authors.
40.
Wow. Yeah. And over about 1,500 years. 15 centuries. Just pause and think about that time frame for you.
That's immense. And these authors weren't exactly sitting around a table collaborating.
Far from it. They came from completely different backgrounds. We have shepherds, tax collectors, kings, fishermen, doctors, statesmen, you name it.
Living centuries apart, different cultures.
Different cultures, different social standings. Many would never have known the others even existed.
Plus in different languages, right? It wasn't all written in one tongue.
Correct. Primarily Hebrew and Greek with some Aramaic sections. And even within, say, the Hebrew texts, the language itself evolved significantly over that 1,000-year period. Vocabulary changes, style changes.
So you have all this diversity. Time, authors, backgrounds, languages.
Exactly. And yet, despite all that diversity, the books don't fundamentally contradict each other. They weave together this single, overarching, consistent story. The same core message runs throughout.
How is that even possible? How do you get, 40 different people across 15 centuries to write separate documents that end up forming one coherent narrative without them planning it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It challenges a purely human explanation. For you, this remarkable unity and diversity, this continuity, it strongly suggests something was guiding the process.
Some kind of common inspiration behind the individual writers.
That's what the evidence seems to point towards. Yes.
Yeah.
What else could account for that level of consistency across such vast differences?
Okay, one more piece of internal evidence our sources highlighted, this idea of self-effacement and brutal honesty. Tell us about that. What should listeners look for here?
It's really interesting. When you actually read the Bible, what you might notice for you is how the writers often seem to, minimize their own role. They don't put themselves front and center even when they were part of the story.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Take the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew was one of Jesus's inner circle, right? An apostle. Yet his own gospel tells you very little about Matthew the person. He doesn't really insert himself into the narrative or highlight his own importance.
Which is kind of the opposite of what you might expect, maybe, if you're writing about world-changing events you were part of.
Exactly. You might expect some self-promotion or at least more personal detail, but that lack of focus on the self is pretty consistent across the biblical writers. The story, the message is the focus, not the messenger. And when they do mention themselves or their own group, what's really notable for you is how often they record their failures, their weaknesses, their doubts.
And this honesty extends beyond just themselves,
Yeah.
right? It applies to the heroes, too.
Absolutely. Our sources point this out very clearly. The Jewish writers are incredibly candid about the flaws of their own patriarchs, their great leaders. Think about Abraham passing his wife off as his sister, Jacob deceiving his father, Judas' hypocrisy, King David's adultery and murder. These aren't glossed over. For you, it's a remarkably warts-and-all portrayal.
They didn't try to hide the embarrassing stuff about their ancestors.
Not at all. And it goes beyond individuals. The Bible is brutally honest about the failures of the Israelite nation as a whole, calling them stubborn, faithless, idolatrous, even murderous at times.
Which, as the sources note, is really different from how other ancient cultures recorded their history, isn't it?
Oh, completely different. If you look at official records from ancient Egypt or Babylon or Persia, they tend to be highly sanitized. Rulers are always victorious, always righteous, divinely favored. Failures and flaws are usually conveniently omitted or spun.
Right, they were often propaganda, essentially, projecting an image of power.
Precisely. So the Bible's level of self-criticism, its willingness to portray its key figures and its own people so honestly, even unflatteringly, that's quite unusual. It's a striking characteristic for you to observe.
There's that quote referenced in our source. Something like, man cannot write the Bible even if he would, and man will not write the Bible even if he could.
Yeah, that sums it up well. It suggests that the motivations behind this writing were perhaps different from typical human history writing. This level of transparency, it hints at something beyond just human authorship.
Okay, so let's just recap for everyone listening. We've touched on several lines of evidence today. We looked at prophecy, these incredibly detailed predictions, especially about Jesus, fulfilled centuries later with probabilities that seem to defy chance.
And the secular prophecies, too, like in Daniel.
Right. Then there was archaeology, which, rather than contradicting the Bible's historical claims, seemed to consistently corroborate the settings, the people, the events.
Providing a foundation of historical reliability, yeah.
Then we looked inside the book itself. The amazing consistency and continuity across 66 books, 40 authors, 1,500 years, different languages, all telling one coherent story.
A unity and diversity that begs explanation.
And finally, this unusual characteristic of the writers, downplaying themselves and being brutally honest, not just about their own flaws, but about the flaws of their heroes and their entire nation.
A level of self-criticism quite unlike other ancient records.
So taken together, these are all pretty compelling points, aren't they? They offer significant reasons for you, the listener, to consider that the Bible might be more than just human words.
They certainly challenge purely human explanations for its origin, its consistency, and its content. Each area presents, a unique perspective on why people find the case for divine inspiration compelling.
So, as you, our listener, reflect on all this evidence we've unpacked, here's maybe a final thought to leave you with. If these different lines of evidence do point towards some kind of divine inspiration behind the Bible, what implications might that have? How might that change the way you approach it, the way you read it, the way you understand its message for your own life?
That's the crucial question, isn't it?
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
This was an audio recording of Elkan's Word for Today, the Devotional for Growing Believers by Greg Elkan. For more information on other edifying resources, or to support this growing work, visit us at www.gregelkan.com. That's GREGELKAN.com. You can send your comments or questions by WhatsApp or Telegram to +234 813 664 2912. God bless you.